Hi everyone, Ernie here, and in this video we are going to finally, we're going to move into Hercules a little bit, and we're not done with Music.SP, not yet. We still have more things to do with that, and I'm very fond of Music.SP, as you are aware. But I think it's time to keep things fresh and moving and go off to the Hercules land. And in doing so, we'll also play around a little bit with getting the Michigan terminal system, the next operating system in our list of things to play with before we get on to MVS later on. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to download what I call my turnkey system, the turnkey files that I put together in such a way that all you're going to have to do is put them into a subdirectory of your choice and just, use the batch file to get things up and running, and then you'll have, hopefully, the next operating system using the eponymous Hercules emulator. So in the description on my web page, go to my Ernie.tk web page. In the description on my YouTube channel, go to the Ernie.tk web page. Yeah, you know where I'm coming from. Oops, guess what? More coffee in exactly what you'd think. Thank you. I do love that coffee. Third cup of the day. Maybe I should talk faster. Maybe not. Okay. Once you get there, go to the download MTS-tk zip. Go ahead and click on that. It goes through the usual Google gyrations, and go ahead and do that. It's fairly big. It's 331 megabytes, and while it's doing that, let's switch back over again and just mention a couple things. I spent a lot of time, and I mean a ton of time, over the better course of 2 years, I guess, playing with this stuff, collecting as much information as I could from the interwebs, and they move all over the place because people get tired of doing things, they get rid of it, stuff just falls off. It's amazing how much junk just lives out on the internet that goes nowhere. Great intentions, but the usual. So I collected them over the years and put it into my repository that I have linked to this web page. So one of the things here I put in the support docs. Slides not so much, but they might be. Alrighty, and in there you'll see a whole boatload of documentation for the Michigan terminal system. And one of the things is that the University of Alberta in Canada was a big user of MTS. There were 200 universities that used it. And MTS is sort of like Music.SP in the respects that the university environment wanted their own deal. They wanted their own operating system for their own reasons. And they developed it. A lot of smart guys, and then a lot of other people at different universities did the same thing. They said, we'll base our mainframe operations at least academically, I guess, on this, and save ourselves some money and maybe have an environment we like better. Who knows? Anyhow, if you take a look at one of these files, let's say from University of Alberta, it's pretty old school. I like it. I think it's pretty neat. Very few, if any, graphics, and it looks like something done on a mimeograph machine from when you were in high school, but it's all there, and it's very comprehensive. So the University of Alberta stuff is great. And then, of course, you have the other things which came from Michigan as well, I think. Yep. And they're a little bit more modern, but not much. And they're just voluminous, 382 pages on MTS-1 alone. So, yeah, you could spend the rest of your life fooling around with this stuff. I think you could find other things to do, but nevertheless, I have links to it all. And the other thing I have a link to is something called Try MTS. Click on that when you feel like it, and you'll go to a website made by a gentleman named by Rupert Lane. And he did a really great job of putting together the how-to, the defined how-to of using the Michigan terminal system. So a lot of the things I've learned, I've based or have gleaned from that website. All right, this is going to be a little bit trickier than before, so I'm hoping everybody is patient. All right, let me just get back to here. Let's go up to the downloads, and let's open this guy up here. And all I did was download that file from my website to the Ernie.tk Heavy Industries computer here, and I got the boss over here. He's definitely coming up onto the workshop here to supervise. But so if I get sort of, there he is. All right. Well, fortunately, you don't have to look at this because he is checking my productivity, as it were. I guess do I have to write you an email telling you the 5 things that I did last week? I guess so. All right. This is what happens when you unpack that. So there's a couple things that are interesting in here. For instance, the MTS disk dock. This is something that comes with the MTS distribution, and it is documentation, at least some of it, as to how this thing works, and it's easy to read. For instance, operator's manual. Well, I have it on a different page. Let me bring that over here so you can see what it looks like. It's pretty basic. It's not something that you're going to like. I don't know. It's not going to be something that you're going to be a page turner while you're watching TV, that's for sure. But it gives you everything you need to know. There's a ton of stuff out there. I don't think we should spend a tremendous amount of time on MTS. I mean, after all, we're really just trying to learn as much as we can without becoming super experts on one or whatever operating system we're playing with at the time. If you want to become if you're really into this stuff and you really want to know how to use it for other reasons, I really suggest that you just spend your time with MVS. But anyway, let's just go back to this again. All right. And get up here to the root. So notice right here it says Hercules and CNF. The Hercules CNF that's the configuration file. Now remember from Music.SB, everything has to have a configuration file because even SIM 390 required a configuration file to tell it what it was. What are you? How does this work? What do you want me to be? What kind of hardware do you want me to be? What do you want me to emulate? What files do you want to use as the virtual version of those pieces of hardware? Like the big DASD. What do you want to be as the DASD? What file on your little PC is going to play a DASD? What things like that. Let's take a look at this real fast. All right. It's more involved than the Music.SP SIM 390 because that was designed just for that operating system, so it knew a lot before you got into it. But in this case here, Hercules is sort of like a blank slate. Hercules is saying, well, you better tell me exactly what you are, all the things I need to know about you, otherwise things aren't going to go that well. If you look over here where it says Ernie-Tech's Hercules emulator configuration file for MTS, what I've done here is I put the information in there. It tells it more about its hardware, what kind of a system it's going to be, how many CPUs it's going to use. In this case, it's going to be one because, frankly, it's not going to be any demand, believe me. What the time frame is, time frame offset, what console port, for instance. 3270 is going to be the console. And then we get down further, all the device definitions. Where are the consoles that you can come in from if you're from, logging in from somewhere else? Now, one of the things you can do in this configuration is just to, instead of save yourself some time. You don't have to put in 7 individual lines of 3270 available. Just say 1.7, and it automatically knows that there's going to be seven things. And then the printers and the card readers, and if you had a punch tape or whatever, a card reader or card puncher, whatever. You don't, but you could, I guess, fool around with it. Now, in Michigan Terminal System, there was a version called 6.0, and then I don't know who changed it, but 6.0A, the A was new and improved. And they made some changes so that I don't believe all these tape drive definitions are required. It says you can comment them out. I haven't because what's the point? It runs just fine. The most important one is down here at disks. See, it says 02603380 disk type. The disks for the DASD emulation is right here, MTS-600DSK, and there's a thing called a shadow file. And all a shadow file is it's like a backup. It's like a running backup so that if things go pear-shaped, as my friends on the other side of the pond might say, you can revert back to a previous iteration. I don't know how to use or not use that. I mean, I'm sure there's a way, but it's not important. But that's there anyway. That's what that SF stands for. The 260-3380, that is actually where we're going to boot the emulation from. So when we go to boot this thing up, it's actually going to come from 0260 off of this drive, which is then associated with this file right here. So that's it. That's the configuration, and that's all there is to it. All right, let's close that down. Let's close everything down just to make it easier. And so we're in that directory that we created. Well, we haven't actually gone to it yet. Let's do that right now. Let's extract that. Let's put that into off the C drive. Let me see if I can move the boss here. Boss, you want to move? I have been doing a good job, boss. He is kind of a pain in the neck, but he is what he is. All right. I'm going to unzip this right to the root of the C drive, just for ease of use, ease of finding. Let's extract that. Well, it's already done before. Yeah, I know. And too much going on. Let's do it anyway. Let's just do it right over everything. Yes, yes. Replace all the files, please, 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 please. More coffee. That's a nice mug. This Buc-ee's mug is great, but for whatever reason, it's not insulated enough. It's not thick enough, and the coffee gets cold pretty fast. Well, anyway, not much I can do about that. All right, to start this thing up, what we're going to do is we're going to go from a command line, from a terminal, or from the command prompt. And let's start the command prompt up. I also want to let you know that there are a couple of ways to install Hercules. One way is to actually install the installable, as they say, which is just going to put Hercules into the system. You'd have to, it registers with your Windows registry and all that kind of stuff. And then you'd have to add the path to Hercules to the environment path. And it's kind of a pain in the neck. Or you can do what I did, which was just include everything right inside the zip file. So it was all living in the same directory and, no harm, no foul. I like to do it that way simply because it keeps things easy. You don't have a lot to think about. And if you don't like this stuff, you find this stuff as boring as can be, and believe me, I can understand why people would. Guys like me don't. Maybe people like you love it. I don't know. But if you find it boring as get out, you don't want to do it anymore. You just erase the directory and you're good to go. All right, so we are now at the command prompt. Let me close that down and get over to where I installed it. C/MTS.tk for turnkey. Check that it's all good. Of course, it's all good. There it is in its DOS environment. Real quick before I start her up, in a previous video under the Music.SP environment, I had mentioned that we had to create a 3270 emulator. And we downloaded a WC3270 emulator from the download site that I had in that video. Please refer back to that if you would, if you haven't done this yet. And you have to actually set up a console so that you can talk to this thing. And the console is MTS-tk, and I can start that at the same time. What I'm going to do is this. I'm going to have a couple of windows running. See, unlike Sim390, where you really needed one window, maybe two, but one, you actually have to have several windows up and running at the same time to use MTS and Hercules properly. It has certain expectations. Some things will work just fine, but you're supposed to have a console, the Hercules console and the user console all up and running simultaneously. Now, that wouldn't be a big deal because back in the day, they were all different machines and they were all different consoles. But not in this case here. All right, we're going to type this thing in here, MTS. It's a batch file that I created, very quick. And it starts up Hercules. And Hercules is very straightforward, super powerful, but that's what you see. If you press the escape key, it actually gives you an approximation, sort of an approximation of what maybe the console would look like if you were sitting in front of an IBM S360 or 370. I think at a 390, they didn't have the physical console anymore. They just had everything running on an actual terminal. But that's what it might look like. That's all the registers, and that's the program status word, and it tells you the condition of the one CPU that we had running and all these little buttons and things like that. And so you can leave it right there, but you actually need to go back over to its command prompt where it says Herc, because if you don't, things are not going to be up and running. So what we need to do now, I created a MTS-tk entry to get a nice pretty console. And I made the font bigger so we can all see it. Good comments on that one. This is the Hyperion version, which is the latest and greatest as far as I know. And I think this is, for 4.70. There's a 4.71, but this is the 4.70. No one would know the difference. Little fixes here and there. But it's good to have the latest and greatest. And when we ultimately get to MVS, we'll have everything, contemporary. Alrighty. This is we're going in, as they say. This is hang on to your hats, because this is fun. It's complicated, but it's a good brain scrambler. Let's play. All right, we do the initial program load. 260. If you recall from the configuration file, it was unit a 3380 unit. We're going to get that thing started from that MTS-600.dsk file. Go ahead and press that and watch this now. Watch. Right off the bat, the console asks me, do you want to run the current system, yes or no? So you make sure that's the active window, and you type in yes. And it does some things, and it says, well, what's your reasons for wanting to do that? Why do you want to do this? Well, that would seem nonsensical, except, if it was actually in the university environment, you were restarting their mainframe or whatever the case was, they probably want to know for the logs. And you can just put in my two initials and say, we're starting it for fun. What's it to you? And you press the enter key again. And there's a little comment there that says just cancel after you've checked the offline devices. You don't have to do anything because you really can't, right? I don't have a real printer in the house. Inkjet printer, maybe. Alrighty, so that's where we sit right now. And we're waiting for it to start. And it takes a couple of processes. And when it gets to a point now where it says peak initialization complete, then it's going to expect from you a couple of additional things. All right. Go back over here to the console. The trick is, a lot of people I know who have been helping me are frustrated by this. They can't get it to work. Here's the trick. You see that little cursor? It drops you at a bad place. Take it down to the bottom. And then type in the command, HASP. Watch both screens. And she says, all right, I've started HASP, which is a scheduler. And as I understand, HASP is a piece of software that was written specifically for the Houston NASA people back in the 60s. So it's got some interesting chops. What we're going to do now, this is where I said the screen's going to get busy. I'm going to bring up another console because you have to. All right, I'm going to put that guy over here off to the side, just living his little life right there, just stay out of my way here. Going to leave that right there because I haven't actually told the operating system to let anybody else on yet. It's just me and the operating system with my little guy right there, my little console window. This is somebody like down the block waiting to get in, so I'm going to leave him off to the side right now. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to say, all right, I want you to let people in. Again, go down to the bottom. That's the trick. And type in MTS, gets its attention, asterisk, and then HSP. And, all right, it starts. Here's the date it's starting. It's over here. Just watch over here a few seconds. Let it run. It's going to take a little while. You can actually see. No, we're actually, all right, we're done. That was fast. All right. And then finally, go down to the bottom here. And now we type in MTS and then LAS. And what that means is they call this let out the lines, which means that invite everybody to use this thing. Okay. And look, watch. It worked. So, yeah. So let me bring this down, and let me bring this down. And we now have a fully functional MTS operating system running on Hercules. And the trick is to make sure on the console to know where to put the cursor. Put the cursor at the bottom. We learned a lot about this from Music.SP, and that was you can do things within the window, but if you're at the command line prompt, it expects you to be at the command line prompt. Music.SP, as you can see now, that held your hand. That was a very friendly operating system. MTS, not so much, but I digress. Anyway, almost done with the coffee. It's friggin' iced coffee by now. Well, whatever. The way to get into MTS, and I am not getting into this right now because it's just way over our time budget today, is I'm going to log in as the basic sign-on, and then ST01. And the password is ST01. Now watch how different this is than Music SP as far as being not much to see. No charges. Well, that's good to know. I didn't really expect a lot of charges. Last sign on was earlier in the day, and that's pretty much it. That is it. I mean, that's almost cruel. So that is it. And I'm not going to get into how to look at files. We're not talking about using this thing yet. What I wanted to talk about was just how to get it up and running, how to get Hercules up and running, how to download this next thing in our playing arounds, and making sure it worked, and then not having yourself a lot of frustration because you couldn't get it to work. And that is, you got to make sure you know where the cursor is on the command prompt in the console. So anyway. Alrighty, are we tired? Let me sign off here, and now watch this. No charges, elapsed time. How much did it cost me? Nothing. How much do? Ooh, look, I got a balance of $1,000 left. Isn't that nice? And we're back to MTS. We're done. And let's just bring back up a couple things. So Hercules is still running in the background. We'll put this over here. And the console window is still running over here. And it's kind of keeping track of what we did. But it's more complicated, no doubt about it. And we have to get used to that now as we move up into the more complicated operating systems. All right. Thanks for watching. Thanks for subscribing. Thanks for your patience. Keep the comments coming. And I think in the next video, we're going to poke around this more and then somehow try to integrate this stuff so that we have learned as much as we can before we move on to even more complicated things. All right. I will talk to you later, and bye for now.